All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Every Nation. I'm your host, Taryell Simmons, and we got a special guest in the building, Darnell Jones. And no, not Darnell Jones. Darnell Jones. There's a difference. I don't know. Maybe Darnell Jones might be an R&B singer in his past day. I don't know. Is any rhythmic blues in you somewhere in the family?
Only by myself. My wife thinks I can sing. My wife thinks I can sing. So. I passed that test, but nah, man, that would have been great though.
Yeah,
amazing.
So we're gonna have a nice little conversation with Mr. Jones today, and I always like to start off with this question because it gives a good foundation to our conversation for those who even sometimes may not know all of you, right? And I asked this question: who is Darnell Jones? And I know that's a deep question, and you could take it as far as wide as you want. I offer that. So for people who don't know you, who is Darnell Jones?
Darnell Jones is a man of God that's inspiring to be better every day. That has a primary motive, and that's just to make people around me feel great. I want people to leave an interaction or a conversation with me feeling better than when they came. I very much so like to accommodate people. But kid from Salt Lake City, Utah, raised by a single mother, had a great father, but he had, his challenges and things, but he was an amazing individual as well. And unfortunately, his time was cut short. But yeah, that's my roots, Salt Lake City, Utah. Father, husband, man of God.
Love it, love it. So Salt Lake City, now residing in Texas, is it?
Yeah, Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, yes, Texas. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. How did you get from Salt Lake City to Texas? Give me that story.
Yeah, interesting. So my father is from Waco, Texas, which is about an hour, 2 hours from Dallas. But I had only visited once or twice, in my childhood. So I never had any real ties to Texas outside of him being from Waco. But fortunately, through a gentleman that ended up being a mentor and sponsor of mine, he had an opportunity in the medical device industry based out of Dallas. And I was kind of in that space that I had lived in Salt Lake City, through college. I played professional basketball there for a year. I had been there a long time. I wanted to change the scenery. I wanted to see what else was out there in the world. And so he had an opportunity in Dallas, and I took that opportunity, and I never looked back. It was probably 12 years ago.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I can honestly say, at least for me, I've never seen a lot of us in the medical device industry. Like that's like, has it been that way for you during that 12 years? And how has it looked now? Like from when you first got into now, like, is it are we growing in that sector? And what does it look like when you look at the landscape?
Yeah, I think, it's like many other sectors where there's long histories of relationships, right? And those relationships breed opportunities. So, yeah, I would say that there was probably a limited amount of minorities in the space based on relationships and based on things like that. But it's growing. I think they're taking a liking to hiring athletes because of the competitive nature they might bring. So it's growing, but I would say, yes, it was definitely, I was definitely the minority in the
Hey, by the grace of God, since you're a man of God, you was able to continue and build something special. Now, I know that's just one aspect of you, but give me your claim to fame. Like, what's your? As I told you earlier when we was chatting, my kind of claim to fame is probably like most of my work working with youth and building youth workforce development programs, and that's how I really got recognized and got a chance to do public speaking. And most of the youth I spoke to, I realized had limiting beliefs on what they could do and what they can be, and that's what really inspired me to do this podcast, to highlight amazing people like yourself who've been able to build a career and a life on their terms with the things that they know and learned. So what would you say be the thing that you've been blessed to do and create and build in this world?
Yeah, I think starting off with my family, kind of breaking the generational barriers that my family had, I was the first to graduate college, which was definitely super important for me, just for the accomplishment. So I was the first to graduate college. I was the first, obviously, to be invited to play in an NBA summer league team. So I got invited to an NBA camp with the Sacramento Kings in 2009, and that was after having 5 knee surgeries and fracturing my foot my senior year in college. So I think it was one of those where I always had plan A of going to the NBA, but actually being able to have an opportunity to put an NBA jersey on, even if it was just for the summer league or in a camp, was a huge accomplishment for me, with 5 knee surgeries and a broken foot. So I would say, graduating college, having an opportunity to put on an NBA uniform, and then taking care of my family. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, was that during the days when Chris Webber and them boys was there? Was that during that time frame?
No, I'm not that old.
Okay.
I'm not that old. Not that old. No, it was the year that I went to summer league with the NBA with the Sacramento Kings. It was Kevin Martin. Bane Tree. They had just drafted Jason Thompson from Ryder. So yeah, they weren't the Kings of that day.
Okay. But I mean, the Kings look like they might be making the playoffs this year. Fast forward, I was like, man, the Kings is going to be in the playoffs. That's all right. Okay, Kings is coming up. All right.
They're scrappy. They're putting it together.
Yeah,
sure.
They are. So in that journey, what did life teach you in that journey from overcoming all that to getting to the summer NBA league, and then what did life teach you in that journey?
Man, it would be too long to give you all the things that it taught me. One for sure is resilience, right? I went through a lot. I went through a lot through college. I created a relationship with my dad, a really close relationship with him later in my years, about 15, 16. And then he was sick in and out of the hospital throughout my college days. So I was having to go back and forth between college and seeing him in the hospital and making sure he was okay. And then my grandfather was sick, and then I had the knee surgeries and fractured my foot my senior year. So I just went through a lot, but I had that goal, and I burned the boats in my mind that plan A was I was going to the NBA, or I was playing professional basketball. And so going through those things, there was 100 times that I said, okay, this is just not for me. It's not for me. And then I burned the boats. The boats are burned. I'm going to play basketball. And so it taught a lot about resilience. But then also, having such a short career, it was, okay, what is your true value, right? Darnell Jones is not a basketball player. Darnell Jones plays basketball, but my true value was far bigger than on the court. My true value, what I believe, is in the impact I can make off the court, whether it be using my brain to, develop and create technologies like we did with POWERHANDZ, or, technologies like I did with the TUKZ underwear company, or, whatever, the things that I haven't even created yet. But I think my bigger value is there. So it really taught me that what happens today, it may not be the same tomorrow. So you got to just keep balance and never get too high, never get too low.
Yeah. And that's the biggest importance. This is why I love when former athletes like you get on, or when I see things that Deion Sanders is doing with all these young men, talk about like, I'm here to build men and build, like, the sports ain't the thing. That's just a pathway to get you to the destination, to the man you're gonna be, right? And really preaching that. And I love that you said that. And we can't. You can't just slowly just name drop these things you created and us not talk about that. So talk about those things that you just slowly just sprinkled in there that you've created along the way.
Yeah, so it's interesting. In the medical device industry, my mentor and sponsor had done several medical device startups and sold them, and he was uber successful. And that was the reason I actually decided to go work for him once I finished playing basketball. Is I thought whatever he knows or whatever he's doing, I need to figure that out and learn that, because he's doing the right thing. And I just saw this entrepreneurial grind and this passion from a 70-year-old plus man that was showing up to trade shows and spending 5 and 6 hours, and he was battling cancer, and his grind was just completely different. And I just kept seeing, as the acquisitions came in, we did 3 acquisitions I did along with him. And it really sparked my own entrepreneurial passion to say, I can do my own, I have ideas, I have thoughts. And so my first my first passion and my first project was a company called TUKZ, TUKZ. And I created, it's a functional underwear used to keep your shirt tucked in, right? Which you would kind of initially think, where do you come up with that? Well, getting in and out of the car in a suit, going into the hospitals back and forth, your shirt's pulling out of your side of your pants, and you're tucking it back in, and it was just an annoyance, right? And so I created these underwear for me, just because I wanted to wear them, right? And then as I started to think about it, I thought, well, I should just start manufacturing, creating these for everyone, because I would ask other guys, hey, do you have this issue? Do you have this issue? And I like to look like nice, right? I like my waistline. I like the shirt to be tucked in. I don't want it bloused out. And kind of asking those questions with other men, they were like, I have the same problem. And so I went to a patent process. I got that formally patented, non-provisional patent, and then was fortunate enough that the show Shark Tank was doing a casting here in Dallas. There was probably 500 plus companies there, probably more than. We made it to the first round, went to the second round, which was a video pitch, and then finally got invited to go present on the show. And I used to watch the show, pretty avidly. And so went on the show, didn't get the offer that I thought made sense. And so we passed on that offer. And then shortly after, we had an investment group here in Dallas that was, kind of tugging at me. They wanted to market and sell the underwear to the service industry and to the military, because there was a huge need in those two spaces. And so I ended up selling it to them, selling a majority interest. I still maintain a board seat and have a minority interest there. But then I founded POWERHANDZ, which is the business that my wife and I co-founded and we own still today. And I'm the interim CEO for. And POWERHANDZ is an athletic training products company, which we make athletic training products to utilize functional movements. So we have a line of weighted gloves that may have a grip or not have a grip, depending on the sport you play. A 10-pound weighted suit called the Power Suit, and some other ancillary products. But we've had that business since 2014. And it's been amazing. We've worked with some of the biggest athletes in the world. It's been a blessing. We've sold in over 85 countries. It's just been a blessing. And then the Power to Give Foundation, we started the same day we launched the business, because we wanted to make sure that we had a very intentional focus of giving back. So the first day we generated $1, we were paying it forward and giving it back. And so the Power to Give Foundation has been amazing. We've impacted, hundreds and hundreds of youth across the country. We've done programs with Boys and Girls Club. We've done programs with North Texas Food Bank. We've done, it's just been a really good experience and made a lot of good impact. And my co-founder and wife, Danielle, she was the CEO for the last 6.5, 7 years, and just did a phenomenal job leading the company. And so she recently took a job with Amazon and running the Black Business Accelerator program. And so I came back to POWERHANDZ to on an interim basis to kind of look for the next CEO and keep the business kind of moving forward.
That's beautiful. And I love that you're keeping it in the family too. And then you circle it back by giving back to community in such a beautiful way. Man, this is a story full of fold. And to think you started from that one journey of burning the boats to NBA, and then led you down this pathway. Let me ask you this: when you started to go into the entrepreneur route, did you take the same mindset that you did with the NBA? Like, you burned all the boats, like this is it. We're going all in on this. Was it that same type of mentality?
Yeah, and I think that's just innate in me. Like, if I decide to do something, like anyone that knows me, if I decide to do it and I move forward with it, I'm going with it and I'm gonna do it. Like, it's gonna happen. And so it was a burn the boats. But the other thing that I think was uber important that I did that I didn't share on the sports side was, it was always about networking relationships for me. And so the gentleman that hired me at the medical device firm, or the medical device company, the first job I had, I played high school basketball with his son. So I had a relationship with his son, and that was a network. And so when I finished playing, I ran into his son, and he was asking me what I'm going to do next. He said, "You should meet with my dad." And so I met with his dad. I was always very respectful with his dad as I tried to carry myself in a way that I wanted people to always remember and understand who I was as an individual. And so that network really drove getting that job opportunity. And then as I became an entrepreneur, the network really drove how I came about building that business, right? How I structured the company, what first items I needed, right? An attorney, a finance director, those types of things. And so it was the burn the boats mentality, but it was also the utilize your network for the things that you don't know, to limit the speed bumps that you're going to hit along the way.
Yes. And I always tell people that, like, even though when you see some of these successful entrepreneurs that you feel are burning the boat, they're taking calculated risks because they've accumulated either the network knowledge or a foundation around them that's going to help them at some point catapult into success. Now, when you take a look back at it, what's the benefit of taking calculated risk when you think about that?
Yeah, well, I think if you're not taking a calculated risk, well, first of all, I think if the risk is not calculated, then you're playing with fire, right? I mean, that's a dangerous place to be in if you're not calculating what risks lie ahead. And then that may change if you have a family. It may change based on your financial situation. It may change on what your network is. It may change on where you come from. So all the risks have to be calculated. But I do think, having people you trust and respect. So I think it's having that network around you to be able to utilize them to help you with calculating what those risks are. But they have to be calculated, right? You don't. I would not advise anyone on the entrepreneurial space to just jump out there and start something they've never done before, don't have any expertise in, because you're probably going to lose. You're probably going to lose some money, and you're probably going to waste some time. So you got to be calculated.
Yeah, and that's most important. So being that somebody who's made several transitions, and then you're making another transition again, going back from being a founder or something to being the CEO and being an operator back in the business, those are like two different transitions. So I'm curious, what have you learned about yourself in the past year after having to make these different transitions?
That's a good one. I was thinking about that the other day. I think it's what I've learned is I don't like to be uninformed. I don't like to know what's going on. I don't like to not know how to do something. So whether it's figuring out something on social media, a new algorithm, how to make a video, finding out on a profit and loss statement how we could change this from that, or how this may affect that, or understanding the legalities of certain terminology when you're reading a contract. Like, those are things that I'm pretty obsessed with trying to understand and wanting to know, because I'd love to be in those situations where I have the knowledge. I'm always going to have those people on my team, but I have the knowledge to understand what's going on. I don't want to be in a position where someone asks a question about something in my business specifically that I can't answer. And I think that any CEO or founder really needs to be that Swiss Army knife in their business to understand every aspect of their business, because the person in that role right now may leave and go find something better. And guess what? You may have to fill it for 3 months. You may run into a snag and not, be fundraising or what have you. And you can't hire a certain role, and you got to do it. So you just got to be a Swiss Army knife, and you just got to be willing to adapt. But I don't like not knowing certain things. So I'm not an expert on a lot of things. But I understand a lot of things, but I'm not an expert on a lot of things. Right. So high level knowledge of a lot of things.
And technically, you don't need to be an expert at a lot of things. You just need to know what's going on so that you know how to maneuver, or where do you need to draw from to get somebody that has the knowledge so that you can make a better informed decision, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that I try to tell people all the time. We have a big demographic that's in that 20-year to 30-year range, and something that I see in that demographic is that, they see like the earn your leisures and all these entrepreneurs people endeavors, and they're like, oh, okay, all I got to do is X, Y, Z. And sometimes it's not just as simple as X, Y, Z, right? There's some other things behind that curtain, or they think they know it all because they watched a couple YouTube videos. Knowing what you know now, what are 3 things you wish you had known if you were at the age of that 20 to 30-year age, and why?
That's a really good question. What would I have liked to have known that I know now that I didn't know then? I would probably say number one is how important having someone on your team that understands finances. Because I understood marketing very well. I understood sales very well because I had done that. I came up with a family of entrepreneurs, so I understood entrepreneurship kind of in its general term. But I think understanding finance and how it can affect you, and where you don't understand certain costs and things will hit you, and which affects cash flow and what have you, it can trouble your business. And when it comes to fundraising, right, understanding how to fundraise. When I started my first company, I had never raised money before. So understanding, if you think you need $500,000, you probably need $1 million, maybe 1.5. How do you go get that money, right? Who do you raise that money from? Do you raise it from family and friends, which I would discourage most entrepreneurs? I know that's 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 kind of the pyramid they tell you to do, right? They call it family, friends, and fools, right? But I would personally discourage from raising money from family and friends, because I think it hinders your line of sight to what the business could be, and you're more focused on getting them a return sooner, because you see them at family reunions, you see them at parties, and all they want to talk about is your business, and you're having a shareholders meeting at every turn. But I think understanding how you raise money, right? What does an angel want to see? What does a VC want to see? How much do you raise? How do you maintain equity? Creating an oversight committee or a board. So I think it'd probably be around finance, fundraising, oversight committee, creating the board. I think it'd be kind of those. Those would probably be what I wish I would have known more earlier.
Yeah, and I think that's the common struggle with Black businesses, or people who are building for the first time, especially when you're the first in your family, because we don't have conversations around money like this. And money in the Black community, there's a different conversation and different relationship with money in the Black community, and I think we have to change our relationship with money first to be able to navigate these conversations. I don't know. What's your feelings on that?
Yeah, you know what? I think it would be great to put it on the families and the parents to have those money conversations, but that's a generational change when you talk about having money conversations. I think that needs to start in the education systems, and I think educators and school boards need to get together and have those conversations around how you manage money. Have those conversations around, taxes, because if you're getting paid $5,000 a month, but you're not realizing what that tax is going to hit you for, right? Or you don't have enough taxes taken out, and at the end of the year, you owe the IRS a check. Those are things that you don't actually know, but it's very basic and simple if we just taught it and educated on it. And like I said, I think your network can become your net worth, and so having a network of folks that understand money, or having a network of folks that can actually get you a job, right? The days of just submitting a resume online and getting a job, I mean, those are far and few between. I think having the relationships to get jobs and make sure you're managing money and making enough money for that matter. But I do think it goes back to the education system. I think it goes to educators. It would be great if we could put it on parents to have that conversation, but unfortunately, our parents typically weren't taught that, right? They weren't taught money.
Yeah.
They kind of learned money, and more often than not, they probably still have really bad habits when it comes to money. So that's a generational change, but I think it really starts in the school systems, and then you hope and pray that the parents can kind of replicate and confirm what the schools are teaching. But I think that's going to take a little bit of time. But I think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it'll take a little bit of time, but I think you're spot on with the importance of that, and how if it's going to start somewhere in the school system, then it can go over to the homes, and then that be that generational change that we're looking for. Now, the thing that I love that you mentioned too is network. You talk about network a lot, and you always bring it back home to that in our conversation. And so I only assume that collaboration is of something that's also near and dear to your heart. What have you learned in your past experiences when you collaborate with others?
Yeah, so it's a double-edged sword. I think you a good friend of mine, who's a phenomenal entrepreneur named Derek Evers. He made this comment, but and it seems so basic, but he said, "Be slow to partner, right? Be slow to partner, because your reputation, take your lifetime to build it, and 2 minutes to ruin it, right?" So I think really understanding who you're partnering with, who you're collaborating with. Do you both have aligned agendas? Are you both going for the same thing? Are you guys equally yoked in how you think about the business and the strategy? Because yeah, it'd be great. Hey, if we can go do an alignment with Nike, and Nike gets us in a million homes, that's great. But if now the cost is at a place where our consumers can't purchase it, is that the right collaboration? It might be the right collaboration for POWERHANDZ, but is it the right collaboration for the youth that we're actually trying to impact? So you have to really think through the collaboration. You have to be slow to partner, and you have to really understand, what are you going for? Why are we collaborating? Why are we partnering? Is it visibility? Is it impact? What are we doing? So, but ultimately, they say, what, you want to go fast, go alone. You want to go far, go together. I think it's an important thing, but you do have to vet out the collaborations and the impact and why you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely. I agree to all that. Now, in this conversation, I got to see how you went through your different growth phases, and you're still growing. When you think about growth, what makes growing challenging?
Yeah, I think, multiple things. I think internally growing as a person can be challenging because certain people or relationships may be used to the older you, right? And as you grow and continue to evolve, they feel like you may have changed, right? And so the conversations you may have been having a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago may not be the same conversations you're as interested in having today, right? And for me, as I get a little older, I think I probably get a little more focused on business and a little more focused on that. Now, relationships to me are everything, but I think that the conversations could shift primarily to business because I'm thinking about leaving a legacy for my wife and my kids. And I'm thinking about, if I pass away, God forbid, in a month, 6 months, 6 years, that I've laid the right foundation financially for my family, but also that I've built the right network that they'll always be there to support my family. So, if I have friends that own businesses and companies, and my daughter wants to own a clothing line, and I have a friend that owns a clothing line, and if I was to no longer be here, that he would take her under his wing and help her with growing and building a clothing line, or hiring her to be a part of his clothing line, or if my son wants to be a developer. So I think that's probably the piece with growth when it comes to as an individual. And I think business wise, growth can be a great thing, but I think the stat is that growth kills more businesses than anything. And I think when you're not able to understand and control what growth you have, you can't manufacture product fast enough. You can't provide service if you're a service-based business, or you can't provide the level of service that you should have provided, or that you committed to providing when you did the contract, right? So if you're a consultant, a marketing consultant, and you got 4 businesses and you're doing really good with them, and you scale to 10, and now those 4 are getting 50% of your impact versus 100% of your impact. Now you've really lost all of them, because you're not going to give the next 5 businesses 100%. You can't give the other 4 100%. Now all 8 are pretty much looking at you like you didn't fulfill your end of the bargain. So growth can be a scary thing for businesses, and the same with manufacturing or consumer packaged goods. You grow too fast. I mean, it's interesting. POWERHANDZ had a very similar story. We came out of the gates really fast and strong in the basketball space. We thought, wow, impact. We're making a lot of impact. We were getting messages from kids every day about the impact our products were making. Let's go to football. Let's go to baseball. Let's go to boxing, MMA. Let's go to, fitness. And the issue we scaled across many markets, but now the focus on basketball has diminished a little bit. So now basketball trainers and athletes are looking at our products as, oh, well, maybe it's kind of more of a football thing, or football people are saying it's more of a basketball thing, and baseball people are kind of confused. So I think growth, like I said, is an amazing thing. Every business needs to stretch and grow. But you just have to be prepared for it, and you have to make sure that you're providing the value and quality that you committed to in the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking of the scenario you just placed, how that leaves you in a very tough decision to make as a CEO, right? I'm curious to know, like, when you have to make those decisions, who grounds you when you have to make a tough decision?
Yeah, I mean, this may sound cliche, and I'll say the first thing that grounds you is God, right? You got to, or whatever higher power you believe in. I think you have to take that up with them and ask for that discernment, ask for that understanding. Do I go here? Do I go there? Is this the right partnership? Is it not? And then I think the second one, like I've said, and I place a heavy emphasis, is is it's so easy today to get mentors, advisors, and people in the space that know what they're talking about, right? I don't know how old you are, but when we were growing up, I'm going to make the assumption you couldn't get on Instagram and DM Gary Vaynerchuk or your favorite marketing, digital strategist or whatever and say, hey, I'll come work for you for free. I just need to learn. You couldn't do that, right? You couldn't the access was just not there. So, it's one of those where I think that now you just there's so much access, there's so much opportunity. There's really no excuse to not be able to reach out, make contact, get the relationships. There's just no excuse now.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s, so yes, no, you could not do that.
In April, so we're right there.
There you go. I see. I knew we had to be somewhere close to the age. Because you had too much wisdom. I was like, oh, there's a lot of wisdom right here. He might have been around the same time frame I've been around.
Nice. I think it was the gray hairs. I haven't started coloring yet. I have not. I'm leaving it for
me neither. I'm holding on. There's a couple that come through, but you can't see them just yet. So I'm holding on for dear life.
Blessing.
So when you look at, I'm looking at your journey. Who in your work has contributed to the person that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't say my mom first and foremost, right? I think the sacrifices that she made growing up financially, time, she was very present, never missed a game, never missed anything I was doing, but also made just significant sacrifices. And being a single mom and now being an adult like I am and understanding what she went through, understanding what she was doing by herself, that I'm fortunate enough that I have a wife, that I have a partner that I can share those responsibilities with. But I think her work ethic and, it's interesting. She didn't graduate high school, but even to this day, like her brilliance is beyond. Like, I mean, she, you think about like different strategies or thoughts or how she would plan things or the way she juggles is just, it's just amazing. So yeah, first and foremost would be my mom, because of course that's my first kind of inspiration, as hard work. And she drove me too, right? She drove me. It wasn't an easy road.
Shout out to Mama Jones. Yeah. We love and we appreciate you, Mama Jones. Thank you. It's always the blacks, the strong black woman that's just holding us down, getting us through, and being the foundation of just the essence of black excellence.
And I'm gonna make you
society today.
Laugh. My mother's white. She's my mother's Caucasian.
Oh no! But she got a black soul.
Listen, she is amazing. She's amazing. She definitely is. That's funny. I think my mom first and foremost. I think, of course, my wife has been amazing. I think we really met as friends and entrepreneur kind of business minds. That's really how we started. It wasn't we met and it was a passionate, it was that. And so, she's brilliant. She's just done a great job in helping me to understand certain things that maybe she went through that, maybe I hadn't been through at this point. And she's had a very successful career. So, just kind of being the one to bounce ideas off each other, drive each other, has been amazing. And then I'd probably say my grandfather was another one. He was just, I think, the lessons he taught me in the time that he was here was amazing, just with how to, carry yourself and how to be respectful and, how to dress the part and not dress the part to impress people, but dress the part so that people know you're serious. Right. And he was very big on that. Right. Have a watch, have a button down, like, have a jacket, those types of things that I think are really invaluable lessons and may not be looked upon the same today because we're a little more free and kind of liberal in our approach. But I just appreciate those. I appreciate those thoughts and lessons. And then my dad, of course, was, he was as big as a giver and was all, just wanted to create value, was so accommodating. And I think that's where I got that. So I think those four. And then I hate to keep going. My grandmother, she ran Nordstrom stores for 15, 20 years and won, every award imaginable with Nordstrom's. And her work ethic and she would have quotes all over her office that, integrity is doing the right thing when no one's watching, and the journey of a million miles begins with the first step. And just certain, Man, I had a lot of really good examples. Yeah.
That just reminds me of that old African proverb that it takes a village, and you
Yeah.
definitely had a village that was a real foundation into becoming who you are today. And you know, my apologies for the mix up for Mama Jones, but here's my comeback to that. You know, Mama Jones, you got the soul of all the essence that we love at the cookout. So I'm pretty sure you've always had an extended invite forever and always to the cookout for raising such an amazing black man. So we appreciate you, Mama Jones. I want in this next segment, I want to kind of like talk about a little bit about the process and the different things that we can take as tangible steps in getting into the industry that you've been blessed to be a part of and in. I want to start off with this question because oftentimes when I used to speak to, fresh out of college graduates, right, they would always have this mindset like, oh, now that I've got this degree, I should be making this 6 figures and I should get this job. And because I've paid my dues. I'm like, no, young man or young lady, it doesn't work that way, right?
Unfortunately not. No, it doesn't.
Every successful person have had some humble beginnings. They started from somewhere. And so I like to ask this question. What was your first job?
So first job, like high school type first job?
Yeah, you could go to the first W-2 out of college job after that.
Yeah, my first job in high school is I worked at a local car wash in the area, and because I played basketball, and my days, after school it was 2 and 3 hours of basketball. I typically only had 3 or 4 hours a day where I could actually really work, and so I was fortunate that through high school things I didn't have to work a lot, but I did. I worked at a local car wash, and it was heavy on the tips, so I always had cash in my pocket. But that was my first job. Obviously, it teaches you a lot, right? You're washing people's cars, and that's a humble space, right? Washing, anything for that matter for other people, and they're telling you to get that spot. You missed the spot and get this. I had never missed very many spots. I was always pretty.
Look, that's your first entrepreneur experience to customer service.
Absolutely. The customer's always right. Especially when they're holding a tip in their hand as they're telling you what to change or what to do. But yeah, no, that was my first job. That was my first job, and then my first job out of college, like I said, was in the medical device industry, in the specifically in the trauma and critical care space. And so it was amazing because I'll never have a job as high stress, high stress, and just one of those jobs that like it'll never be that difficult, right? I was selling medical devices to trauma surgeons, in between patients as they have a patient that just got in a car wreck or it was on fire or got shot or, is on their deathbed. I was, for a 30-second span between this OR and the other OR, I was selling the doctor something, really selling them on a meeting so I could come in and have a further, conversation. But that was one of those that I'm so glad that my first job was that difficult because again, I could sell to anyone at this point if it doesn't get as high stress as that. So, yeah.
Gotcha. Now, what would you say when you look back at your career? Like, what were the key steps that helped you really be successful and grow in your career and business?
I think it's it's a couple things. So I think the first thing is you always want to make your boss look good, right? Or whoever you're reporting to. You always want to make them look good. And then you got to be obsessed with providing value. You got to be obsessed with providing value. And that's whether you're networking to find the next opportunity or you're actually in the opportunity. But if you're obsessed with providing value, you're always looking to make your higher up, your manager look good. You're putting yourself in the best possible position that when they get pulled up, you get pulled up with them, or they're going to take you with them if they go somewhere else. Or, people notice and see if you're obsessed with providing value. And if you're just punching the clock and you're coming in and just kind of doing the minimum, which we all get there, right? We all get tired. We're all human. But I think if your character and the integrity that you have, people see that as this person is going to provide value and they're obsessed with providing value and they're going to do the right thing, good things happen to those people, in my opinion.
Nah. Now, I know your story is going to inspire somebody that's listening today. And there's two different types of listeners I want you to speak to right now when you give this advice. There's one, that fresh college student who's coming out and trying to find their way, right? The advice you would give them trying to break into this industry, because they're like, oh, medical device industry, I didn't know they had it popping like that. Now I want to go into that industry and see or explore entrepreneurship in that industry. And then also, there's some individual out there that's listening to this that we get often. They're in that transition phase of life, right? They spent the first 20 years or the first 10, 15 years of their life doing this one career. It was a dead end career. Now they're like, I should have went this route because that's what I was passionate about. That's where I had the skill set in. Now I want to make the flip. And your interview is, made them see, you know what? I'm going to make the flip. I'm going to burn the boats. I'm going to make the flip. What's some advice you would give to those two type of individuals who now see that, the creative you created as a viable option, and then they want to go in that direction?
So one, I would say, especially for the college students that are coming out, unless you're really, really, really money motivated, and that's a specific individual, right? A lot of people say they're money motivated. You got to dig deep. If you're really, really, really money motivated, and that's your driver, like I'm not money motivated. If I made an extra $100 that hour, that would not drive me, right? I'm task completion, or that's where my motivation is. When I complete the task, or I have a stretch goal that I hit, that's what motivates me, not the compensation. We all need it, but that's not what motivates me. So I'd say for the college student, it would be find a career or a job that you actually enjoy, and then find a mentor or a sponsor and network yourself to death and provide value to those individuals that you find in that space. So if it's the medical device industry, or it's sports tech, or it's entrepreneurship, identify 5 to 10 in each space that are working in the space or have a history in the space. Interview them, ask them questions, provide value to them. Tell them that you're willing to work for free. You'll do certain things for free, especially as you're just out of college. You don't have the expenses that someone that may have a family has. So I think the opportunity is there. Find something you enjoy. You don't have to. I think it's probably a stretch for people to say, oh, find something that you're just passionate about, completely. That's difficult, right? But find something you enjoy, because I think if you go for the money and you hate the job, you're not going to last very long anyways. But if you go for something you actually enjoy, you probably won't initially make the money you want, but you'll have more passion about providing the value that I talked about, and you'll probably grow and scale in that business a lot faster. So that's what I would say to the college student is identify the things that you enjoy, identify people in that space, DM them, call them, email them, provide value, work for free, learn, let their network become your network. And that would be my advice there. I think for the individual that's transitioning and changing jobs or what have you, I think is give yourself grace. Like I said, network, provide value. That core value doesn't change, but provide value to those around you. Identify people that are in the space, and then calculate what the risk is. Right, calculate money over enjoyment. Right, if it's an extra $20,000 a year and you're not going to enjoy it like another role, but you really want that extra 20, do it. But if you don't think that extra 20 is going to help you and you're not going to like the role, you'd probably be better off going and finding something that you actually enjoy a little bit. But yeah, but give yourself grace. Know that it's never too late. Been a lot of very successful people that didn't hit success until later in their years, and try to find your why. You don't have to have it all figured out, whether you're coming out of college or you're in your 30s or 40s. You don't have to have it figured out, but try to find your why and what really drives you.
I love that. Love that. And I'll second what you were saying about, finding something that you like and then adding value. The more you do something that you like and you add the value to it, the more people see that value and the more they want to pay for that value to be in their organization, part of their team. And so eventually the the monetary value will come because you've offered so much value and you do it with a joy and the ease or whatever it is that you bring to the table that you they just simply can't get anywhere else, right?
100%. 100%. I mean,
Right.
you don't mind staying an extra 30 minutes or an hour at the office or getting there an hour early if you actually enjoy the role. But if you dread it,
Mhm.
when that clock hits, 4:59 or
Mhm.
whatever, you're packing your bags and you're walking out the door, and that's noticeable. Everyone knows that, right? And you know that in sports. You know the person that's just there, that's kind of going through the motions. You know that in your job.
Mhm.
You know that about your family members, right? There's certain family members that you
Mhm.
would never hire. Then there's other family members that you would hire, and it's all based upon what the value is they bring, how they carry themselves, if they're
Mhm.
motivated individuals. So I think you just always
Mhm.
want to make sure you're giving that perception and let people know that that's who you are, because otherwise it becomes a slippery slope trying to get a job in the competitive world that we're in today with layoffs and everything else.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now, when you look at the industry that, I guess we're talking about two industries because now you're talking about, sports, medical
Yeah,
devices,
I've been at a
and
medical
then,
device for about 7 years now. So I've been in the sports tech, really in the sports tech,
okay,
consumer goods business for the last 7 to 10 years.
17 years. Okay, let's focus on that one, the sports tech industry. When you look at the sports tech industry, what does the future look like to you? And especially when it comes to people that look like us, what's the potential there?
Yeah, so I think the benefit to people that look like us, and I'd be making, I guess that might be an assumption that might not be correct. I would say, first of all, the sports tech world is one that
Mm-hmm.
is never going to go away, because when you look at sports tech in its holistic view, is it could be rehabilitation, so it could be,
Mm-hmm.
it could be you broke your knee and you had surgery and now you're rehabbing. It could be
Mm-hmm.
performance based, where it's, you create a product like POWERHANDZ and someone's training with a 10-pound weighted suit to get bigger, faster, stronger. It could be technology around an industry. So it could be data and analytics around sports, or data and analytics around fitness, like,
Mm-hmm.
Apple Fitness or whatever. It could be kind of a multitude of things. I think the great thing is as you mentioned earlier, in the communities that where the kids come out of that don't have as much guidance, is they think they have to spit a hot 16 or be on a field or on a court, right? But I think as the more they
Mm-hmm.
get exposed to understanding, I can actually help train that athlete to become what he's going to become on the field, if for whatever reason my skills and talents didn't get me on the field, or I could be that
Mm-hmm.
athlete's agent, or I could create a technology that helps them improve their life, or if I care about the aging population and I want to make sure that they improve
Mm-hmm.
their quality of life, here are the things that can
Mm-hmm.
happen and take place. Right, I can go be a physical therapist. I can be a mental health professional. There's so many
Mm-hmm.
jobs and so many roles in my space that it's just identifying, is health, fitness, wellness, sports, is that something you're interested in, and if it
Mm-hmm.
is, it's at that point, it's where do you want to play, where do you want to sit.
Love that. Love that. All right. So let's wrap up like this. I mean, I feel like me and you could talk forever, but I don't do the Joe Rogan type podcast. So what projects are you currently working on and where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm a LinkedIn fanatic. I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me at Darnell Jones on LinkedIn. On my Instagram, it's Dr. Jones 32, Dr. Jones 32. I'm not a doctor, but my middle initials are for Ray, so it's Dr. Jones 32. Uh,
Oh, there you go. All right. I like that. I like that.
uh, so those are the two primary platforms that I use. But I mean, I'm working on a lot right now. I've always worked with athletes, whether it's helping them launch entrepreneurial endeavors, looking at investments that they're interested in investing in, or co-investing with them. Um,
Mhm.
just started writing a book for entrepreneurship, so I'm still,
Okay. Let's shout out that. All
yeah, it's
right.
still early stages, but I'm thinking probably in the next 6 months. I'm hoping it'll be done before
Okay.
the end of the year. So I'm working on that. Um, and then of course the foundation, and POWERHANDZ
Mhm.
specifically. That's really the primary focus as we're scaling. We've got a big partnership with the WBC boxing organization
Mhm.
that we just launched. What else? Yeah, we're working on a lot of
That
stuff. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
no worries. No
Thank you.
worries. Don't. And if you're driving, ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. I'm gonna get all his contact information links. I'm gonna put it in the show notes below. I'm gonna try to get this brother back out when he does this book tour, because we gotta support the book. You gotta come back out here, please, please, please make your way back here so we can support that book.
My pleasure. I definitely will.
So Darnell Jones, thank you for just your wisdom, your excellence, your knowledge, and sharing all of yourself with us today. I greatly appreciate hearing your story. Can't wait to read more about that story and read about the entrepreneurship tips that you're going to put in this book that we're going to see in 6 months. And just thank you for just being an amazing member in our community and supporting and being a change agent as well. So thank you. We appreciate you and we salute you.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and continue the good fight and making the impact, right?
That's what we do. That's what we do. And that's going to be our episode today, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll catch you on the next time.